Welcome to Devils Advocate. I'm Jeff Antoon, your host. This week's topics are: which major sport has the best overall athletes? We're going to compare all the major sports. We're going to use different categories to compare them with. We're going to total out a score, and we're going to come down to it. So let me preface. We're looking at the best of the best, not the average. If we're looking at football, we're not talking about linemen. If we're looking at baseball, we're not talking about pitchers. It's pretty much the best athletes with there. So we're going to throw out gymnastics and golf, race car drivers, dart throwers, etc., anything along those lines. In terms of what I'm going to be looking for, here are the categories we're looking at. So strength, speed, agility, endurance, and hand-eye coordination. Each are out of 10, so therefore there's 5 of them and 50 points, and we'll see which sport has the best athlete based on this ranking. So let's look at Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball plays 162 games per year and about 3 hours a day at games. I played professional baseball. Again, here's my baseball card so you can take a look at it. I played for a couple years in the minor leagues, and it's not easy. It's a grind. You're there at 2 o'clock, the game's at 7, and you leave at like 11, 11:30, midnight. It's a long day. It's just the end of the day. So I'm going to be straight honest. We'll get down to some point totals with them. But baseball, to hit a baseball is one of the hardest things. And of all the sports out there, hitting a baseball is one of the toughest. As you can see with Ted Williams on this chart here, Ted Williams, this is his strike zone, and they do this hitting zone for a lot of the hitters. What's your average, where the pitch is. So I'm also going to show you the different types of pitches. So we don't know what's coming as a hitter. It could be a curve, fast, slider, changeup, knuckle, palm ball, split, fork, whatever it may be. We don't know the angle, the direction, the speed, and that is what you have to register within like 0.4 of a second total to be able to hit the ball as well as some of the greatest players do. So let's look at their rankings or their categorical breakdown. At a strength, I give them about a 5. You don't need to be strong. I know the best are the strongest, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're the best player. But let's say your strength, you only need about a 5. Speed, this is important. Best players are usually the fastest as well. I'd give them an 8 out of 10. Agility, we're talking the shortstops, the outfielders. We're focusing on them. I would give agility a 7. Endurance, it's more of a grind. I throw them at a 5 because they don't really have to have endurance. You hit the ball, you run to first, you get a double, you run to third. You don't have to have a lot of endurance like maybe soccer players do. And hand-eye coordination, by far the hardest in all of the sports I'm going to talk about. I'd give them a 10 out of 10. So we'll come back to baseball, but let's take a look at some of the highlights. And
Netsky is at first base with 2 out, and here's Jeff Antoon once again.
A good play by Gallego that time. He gets the lead runner at second base. That would have been the tying run. So he gets the lead man down, and Zarnetsky at first. So Antoon, the hero yesterday, has a chance to earn those laurels again. Zarnetsky at first base with 28 stolen bases. I think they'll probably give Antoon a couple of pops and maybe turn him loose.
Antoon whacks it into left field. He hit that one well. I think it's going to go. It's out of here. Oh, my. 2 days in a row for Jeff Antoon. And look at the smile on his face. Not on his. Chris Lock's not happy. But UCSB certainly is, as Antoon delivers again and gets a hero's welcome at the plate. No doubt about it. He went down and got it, a shot into left field. And for the second consecutive day here on Prime Ticket, Antoon wins the game with a home run. This time with 2 out in the bottom of the 9th. And Santa Barbara comes from behind to win it 6-5. So Antoon is 9th home run of the year. And the final, you see it right there. UCSB over Irvine, 6-5. We'll be right back.
the next one we're going to go to is the NFL. They play about 16 games a year in the regular season and about 60 minutes per contest. But this is very slow and methodical. So when we're talking about this categorical breakdown, I would give them, again, you have to be very strong in this because you are pushing against someone else, especially if you're on the defensive end, like a linebacker or defensive end. I'm not speaking to the offensive or defensive linemen. They're athletic. I'm not speaking to the quarterbacks because they're not. I mean, Michael Vick maybe, Randall Cunningham, someone along those lines. But strength, I would say an 8. I would use speed. This is one of the top ones to have. The faster you are, the better you're going to be, especially at receiver. Agility, this can go to receiver or defensive end or defensive back, one of those two that we're speaking to. Endurance, I mean, it's just a spurt here, a spurt there. It's kind of like baseball, so it's a lower end to me. You don't have to be in endurance shape. You have to be in quickness shape, obviously. And hand-eye coordination, obviously, you go to catch the ball. You got to know, the speed of the ball. Got to have good hands. So hand-eye coordination is there, but it's nothing like baseball is. So in terms of football, let's see what else. That's all I got for football. Let's take a look at some of the highlights and some of the best players that we're going to see. Deion Sanders, T.O., Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, I can go on and on with a bunch of Jerry Rice. These are some of the best athletes to play. Next one we're going to do is the NBA. NBA plays 82 games a year, and they have 48-minute games, 4 12-minute periods. In terms of their numbers, I would give them about a 7. Maybe you could fight me on this one. Maybe they don't need to be as strong. And I'm looking at the small forward, the off guard. I'm looking for somebody who's a slasher like a Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. Some of the greats that play those positions. They're wiry. They're 6'6", 6'7"-ish. They're not too tall. They're not too small. I mean, you could throw AI in there, Allen Iverson, as some of the great athletes to play these positions. But strength, they don't really need it as much. But speed, quickness, I would also use as that, is a big one. Agility is a big one here. I'd give it a 10 out of 10. You got to be agile to be able to move, dribble the ball. Hand-eye coordination is there, but nothing like baseball, of course. Endurance, I mean, when I look at LBJ and what LeBron has done in the playoffs, he's playing more and more minutes, and he's impacting the games as a result of playing more and more minutes. So you have to have the endurance to be able to go fast, jog, play defense, jump, outlet, shoot. You got to be on your game. So endurance is high. I'd give it an 8 out of 10 there. And hand-eye coordination, obviously, dribbling, passing, shooting, rebounds, whatever they may, stealing the ball. Hand-eye coordination is a big one, but again, not as big as the baseball one in the process. So let's take a look at some of the highlights in a second. And I mentioned Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Vince Carter. I mean, I can go on and on with some of these players. The next one is the NHL. They also play 82 games, and they play about 60-minute games. I know overtime is also there, but again, 3 20-minute periods. With hockey, I mean, they're not the biggest of athletes. They don't have to be 6'5", but they have to be very agile and very quick in order to be the best. I mean, Wayne Gretzky, Sidney Crosby, Alexander Ovechkin, some of the guys that are the greatest that play are also not necessarily the biggest or the smallest, but they are the fastest and the most agile. And they have to have high hand-eye coordination. So I give them a 9 on that one. But look at strength. I mean, this could also be disputed. You don't have to. Wayne Gretzky wasn't tough, but he does have to offset a block, or when he gets in the lane, he has to push somebody off. I mean, you could throw that to a 5, but I'm going to give it a 7, just for the average. Speed and agility are up there, 9 and a 7. Endurance, man, they play like, 2 minutes at a time, and then they sit. I think they have 3 or 4 lines. So you are absolutely wearing your body out when you're skating for that long. So again, I give them an 8 on endurance because they need it. Now, there's one sport that endurance is a 10, because I give them all the credit. Actually, 2 of them that are higher than this one. But in the NHL, because they get a break, I can't put that endurance at a 10. The next sport we're going to do is soccer. It's FIFA, MLS, whatever club sport you're looking at. It's about 34 games a year. That's MLS numbers. Here we're in America, MLS. And they play 90-minute games, 2 45-minute halves. So with soccer, and we're talking Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, some of the great ones that are current today, as some of the great athletes. Strength, you do not need it. This is the least of all the strength. It could help, but you don't need to be buff, like I can bench this much at all. You don't really need that. You do need the body weight to push somebody off as you're challenging the ball. But you need the speed and the quickness. They call it pace. What's your pace at? The faster you are, obviously, you can run past the defenders. You have to be agile with the ball. It's not hand-eye coordination as much. It's hand-foot or hand-head as you head the ball. But again, there's coordination that comes in there. But agility in the air with the ball, very high. I give it a 9 out of 10. But this is the sport that they run about, on average, not the goalies, 7 miles in 90 minutes. And the midfielders, they run about 10 miles. That's crazy. So again, that's why endurance is so high for this one. Again, hand-eye coordination at 5. And lastly is our MMA, boxing, wrestling kind of category. They got about 3 to 6 fights on average for the boxers in MMA, about 25 to 36-minute matches. It could vary, obviously, in the process. In terms of their statistics or their category, strength, obviously strength is a big one on all of them. You have to be strong in order to punch or wrestle. Whatever you're doing in the process, you got to have that strength involved. Speed and quickness, again, obviously it's high up there. You can dispute that one as you want. Agility, you got to be good on your feet and fast on your feet. You're not necessarily jumping like a basketball player, but you need to be agile. But endurance is there. And I'm telling you, one time when I worked out back in the day, I punched the bag for like 2 minutes straight and just punching drills, and I was absolutely exhausted. So I know that you can train yourself for endurance, but I'm not going to put it at a 10 like soccer is, because that's over 90 minutes. These guys are going 3 minutes and then a 30-second or 1 minute break, I think it is. It changes up. MMA does 3 5-minute or 5 5-minute periods. Boxing is 12 3-minute rounds with a minute in between, so it varies. Hand-eye coordination, obviously hand, foot, kicking, using your hands, not as high. You could dispute that one as well. Obviously, guys, I just want to remind you, you can pick whatever you want. I am not an expert. This is just my picks. As Devil Advocate, I'm playing both sides. I want you to put in your comments of who you think the best athlete, which sport has the best overall athlete in it. So again, let's take a look at some of, well, actually, here's some of the players or some of the people that fight. You're talking Mayweather, some of the greatest, Muhammad Ali, Roy Jones Jr., Conor McGregor in MMA. I don't know any wrestlers offhand, but you know what? I do have a call with somebody who's an expert on wrestling. Let's go to Pat. Pat, what do you got to say?
Your question about wrestling, the thing with wrestling and other sports, even boxing or MMA, I think the endurance is probably the highest of all of them, because you're using, take wrestling for example, you're using every muscle in your body for 6 minutes straight. Very rarely is there a break. There aren't very many sports that do that. I think the endurance on that, the shape you have to be, the conditioning for those sports, or even with boxers who go, they get a little break in between the rounds, but 15 rounds using their arms the whole time and their whole body, the endurance of those sports is far superior than any of the others.
And Pat, tell us, what's the highest you got in terms of wrestling? You make it professional, college, what did you do?
Yeah, I was jumping off the top turnbuckle with wearing a mask. Now, I wrestled in high school. I was a state qualifier, and I wrestled a year in college, but that was it.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Pat. We appreciate it.
All right.
All right, lastly, here's what we're going to do. I want you to take the time right now to chime in and maybe write down your picks. You probably already did them in your head if you're watching, but here are my top 6. Okay, we're going to go, and I'm going to rank them based on what you saw there. Baseball at a 35 out of 50. This is the lowest. I still think hitting a baseball is one of the hardest things to do. I want to commend that because that's my sport. At 5, I'm going to put soccer at 37 out of 50. Again, you saw my totals. I just didn't total them until this point. So soccer is down there, mainly endurance for the top one there. The NFL, you have to be strong, somewhat agile there. I'm going to put them at a 38 out of 50. With boxing, MMA, I'm going to put them at a 39 out of 50. So that's my third ranking one. And then my last 2 will be the NHL. Again, I still think this, at first I thought it was the NHL just because it's like a combination between football and basketball. I think it's a combination hockey, and that's what I love about it. But I gave them a 40 out of 50 points, and obviously the top one is the NBA with a 41 out of 50. So there's my list. Again, as Devil's Advocate, I want you to create your own list. I want you to chime in on the comments. But I do rank the NBA with the best overall athletes. What do you think? We will see you soon. Thanks for joining me on this second episode of Devil's Advocate. You guys have a great day.